I think what's hard is continuing sometimes to have that like positive outlook and that like future facing, this is what I want, like vision. And sometimes as mom, you forget yourself in the equation. You start dreaming about what you want for your kids or what you need for your family, that type of thing.
Ho, ho, ho!
Hey, Santa, before you get too carried away, we need to talk.
Yeah, because while you're up there with the cookies, moms are the ones making sure the magic actually happens.
And let's be honest, who does all the work and who gets all the credit?
This year, it's time for a little more for mom. We're hosting the More for Mom Summit, a free online event designed to help you ditch the stress and keep the joy of the season.
Think of it as your 4-day reset. Practical tools, heart-centered support, and a community of moms who get it.
Grab your free ticket at moreformomsummit.com because this year, mom gets to enjoy the magic too.
Ho, ho, ho. This episode is brought to you by the More for Mom Summit. You can get your free ticket at www.moreformomsummit.com. We'll see you there. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. We are here with the fabulous Meg. Hi, Meg.
Hey, Shawna.
Hi. And this is an episode of Your Mom Enough coming to you in the More for Mom series, where we are interviewing our guests that are coming to present with us for More for Mom. Meg is a friend of mine. We've worked together for years now and someone that I admire. And we've invited her to come and talk to us about things like manifestation, using your daydreams to keep a positive outlook, and just keeping magic in your life. And so I'm really excited to have you here today, Meg. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Shawna. I'm so
Ah,
excited to be here.
You're welcome. Okay, so before we kick things off, I will just say I'm super thrilled to have you here. One of the things I appreciate most about Meg in terms of like a woman I know in the world is that she is one of the most like willing to creatively try a thing, and I lean towards, oh, I'm not going to be good at it. I'm not going to be perfect. Let me, practice in silence so nobody finds out that I am doing whatever. But I really admire your like, let me just try it and see what happens perspective on things. And it's something that I certainly want to adopt more because I feel like it's really powerful for women. And having a daughter, I want her to be someone that's just willing to try creative things, even if the goal is not to be perfect, but just to have the experience and to learn something, I think is super positive. So excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Shawna. And thank you very much for all those kind words and that lovely intro. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And it's lovely to hear. And I think that, there are actually a lot of like common phrases in the world that kind of push you in that direction. Like, the worst answer you can get is a no, or fake it till you make it, or, um, even when it comes to like entrepreneurship, where it's like every entrepreneur has had, 100 bad ideas before that one breakthrough idea. And so, um, I think that whenever, at least for myself, whenever it gets hard or if it's intimidating, especially when it comes to putting out something creatively, I find that there is that extra layer of intimidation because you are kind of putting a piece of yourself out there up for scrutiny and judgment and are they going to like it or not? And so it can be really daunting. But sometimes I remind myself of just even like those little catchphrases where it's like, yeah, what is actually the worst case scenario? They won't like it or they'll say no and we'll try something else.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and you know what I think is so amazing? Like when I see you trying things, it encourages me to try things, to just be like, okay, like, let me just try this and see what happens. Like, look at her. She didn't die. Everything. She tried a thing. She had the experience. She like enjoyed it or not. And, exciting. So what would you say? Okay. You and I both are into the world of manifestation and positive thought and all that kind of thing. What would you say, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, that's fine. What would you say kind of brought you to learning about all of these concepts and wanting to test them out and bring them into your regular practice.
Today's word of the day is light.
Okay, so my origin story goes a little bit far back from when I was a kid. Yeah, and my mom has always been super woo woo before it was cool, and when it was like, ugh, and really into crystals. And I remember her making vision boards with like cutting out pictures from magazines and gluing them onto Bristol board, and I would make them with her. And so there were a lot of aspects that I really liked about it. But then one thing that I noticed was just, it was a lot of dream-like sort of thoughts where it's like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire one day. I'm going to, or this or that, or I'm just, if I glue this picture onto the board, then it will happen. And I think, as I've gotten older and I do really embrace manifestation and, yeah, positive thinking and like turning those thoughts into actions, I think that there is something to be said for you can have all of those dreams and thoughts, but there is action required as well. You can't just say, "Oh, I want to win the lottery," and never buy a lottery ticket because then you won't be able to win the lottery.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a bit outlandish example, but I think that you do need to speak things into existence yourself and speak them into existence and take action where you can. And so, one example I have to remind myself of is when I moved to Australia for a few years, and I remember before I went, I did not grow up with any means, and I was working every hour I possibly could at a Starbucks to save up money before I left, and I worked the whole time I was there as well. I was on a travel work visa, and I just remember every customer that would come in, I was probably very annoying, but just telling everyone I could that I was going to Australia. And um, through all of those interactions, someone could say, "Oh, you're so lucky that that happened to you, that you met someone and, connected all these dots." But if I wasn't talking about it, if I wasn't saying, "Yep, I'm doing the thing," then those things wouldn't have fallen into place. So I
Yeah.
think you kind of have to put in a little bit of the work, quote unquote, to see those things as well.
Yeah. I think too, thank you. I think too that the imagination part and the like vision part is highly underrated too, because I think like you don't like know what you're aiming for if you don't know what it might look like. And it might not end up being exactly like you envisioned when you get there, but if you don't have a place that you're envisioned going, then you're just staying in the same spot, you know? So I've had similar experiences too where I've just like announced unlandish like things like, oh, this is going to happen. And people kind of look at me like I'm crazy, but it happens. And I think one thing that I really love knowing that helps me with feeling confident about things like manifestation is that Einstein said the imagination is the person's most powerful gift. Right. And so he's Mr. Math. If he thinks it's great,
It must be true.
it's gotta be you, you know? So amazing. So with
Absolutely.
how do you find that you use, tools like vision boards or manifestation in your everyday life, and what do you think it brings to you?
Yeah, so I love using a digital vision board. So like I said, I grew up with cutting out glue stick onto the Bristol board, very physical. But I have moved into making digital vision boards, so I keep them as a backdrop on my laptop, on my phone, because in this day and age, of course, we're so connected, and whether you're working online or just going about your day, we're always looking at a screen at some point. And so, two things I like about it is that it's always in front of me. It's not a physical board where if I'm in that room that it's in, I'm seeing it. Otherwise, if I'm out all day, I don't see it. At least when it's on me, or on my devices, I'm looking at it constantly. And it's that subconscious reminder of what I'm dreaming of or working towards. And And the other part that I like about it being digital is that it's really quick. I can update it and edit it, and I try to make a new one every month. But I also don't like to put a time frame on it. And so even if there's something where it's like, okay, well, I'm still kind of, working towards these things, I'm just going to update a little bit here and there. It's really easy to sort of go in and make those changes, and yeah, keep everything fresh, and it doesn't feel like a daunting task.
Do you find yourself surprised by the number of things you actually like live or accomplish that were on your dream board? And do you recognize it when it's happening, or is it like retrospective, like you look at them and you're like, "Oh man, that happened and that happened and that happened."
Cool. That is such a great question. And it kind of going back to before when you mentioned, like, sometimes you'll say something and it's like, "Ugh, I know this sounds crazy, but like it's going to happen." There's been so many things throughout my life where it's like, this makes no sense, financially, geographically, whatever it may be, where it's like, it makes no sense. But vision board or not, it's like you have this clear image in your head that I can see myself in this place or doing this thing, or um and it's almost like it's not an option. And I think that sometimes we downplay that, and you know we rationalize too much. I think that's part of the human mind, where we're like, well, how we're trying to find a solution, like how would that be possible, how would I afford it, how would I get there, how would I do that. And sometimes, yeah, you can't use rationality. And so yes, that has happened many times to me, where sometimes it is in the moment I'm noticing it, and other times it'll be afterwards. And because all of my vision boards are digital, it's really easy for me to scroll through them. And I usually title them with the month and the year. And so I can go back and look and say, like, wow, I did all of these things, or all of this came true. And sometimes it isn't as literal as, y- you know, um, a place or a thing, something material. Sometimes it is a feeling, or just like a really quick snippet or moment, and it is really beautiful when you see it all come to fruition. There, I can rhyme off a bunch of things. A lot of some of the biggest examples are very uh, physical. I manifested having my own home for a very long time, and I was saying it when I was living in a very dark basement apartment, and I was single. And I just always had this vision of living in this bright, airy home with lots of windows, and having a fiance and all of these things. And it did not take much time at all for all of those things to come true. And like I said before, there's the work in the background happening. I was making choices that led me in that direction. But in that moment, people that I told were uh, thought it was a little bit crazy, and it didn't make much sense. But I knew it was possible. Yeah, so that was a very big and pretty recent one that came to fruition.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. This question might be unfair, so I'm going to partially answer it as well. Because like the premise of the show is your mom enough. Meg is not a mom, right? You don't have to be. That's okay.
Dog mom.
You're woman enough, you know? But I think sometimes what happens for moms, and like what's interesting for me is I came to the role of mom late. So I became a mom at 42. And I think previous to that, I was living a different kind of life. Um, and then when I became a mom, I was like, whoa, like there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of societal judgment and pressure and craziness. And I think what's hard is continuing sometimes to have that like positive outlook and that like future facing, this is what I want like vision. And sometimes as mom, you forget yourself in the equation. You start dreaming about what you want for your kids or what you need for your family, that type of thing. Um, and so here's the unfair question, and maybe I'll ask it in a way that feels a little bit fair. If you're in a place or space or like headspace where it feels like things are not possible or things are like not going the way that you'd planned and almost like in the opposite direction to what you thought was the path to what you've envisioned, is there anything that you do that helps you kind of get back to like the creative daydream that's just like, let me just be brave enough just to dream about a thing. And what does that
Mhm.
look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, really quickly, just yeah, I'm not a mom, but I think that is really important for anyone, whether you're taking care of your kids or your spouse or anybody. I think that you can only show up as the best version of yourself when you're nurturing like your inner needs and um we like to say being the best version of ourselves, and maybe that's not always the case because you're busy or tired or just trying to keep up, just trying to keep that baseline, and which is totally okay that, we all go through those seasons. But yeah, I think whether it's something so small like taking 5 minutes out of your day to make a vision board or to go and get that coffee, even if you're with baby, and just something that fuels you, I think, is really important to, like, stay with yourself, and, um, yeah, to answer your question, whenever I'm feeling maybe, like, "Oh, I'm just hitting that baseline," or I feel like I don't have a lot of control right now, I don't have a lot of control over things happening in my life, um, first thing is remind myself of, the times where I have felt that before, and life is crazy. It's filled with ups and downs, ebbs and flows. And one thing I know to be true is that, yeah, nothing, truly nothing is forever. And it is always going to change. The tide will turn. And so for me, that's like really calming to think of. And also humbling when you're on a really big high. It's like, okay, well, let's
Just
think,
turn to.
think about what might happen also in the future. And, um, yeah, for me, I really, like, look for the little things, and if I feel like even when it does come to manifesting where I can't control the big things, I focus, more inwards where it's like, "What do I need right now um, to feel happy or to feel joy or to feel good? What are the things that I can control as well?" And focus on those, and so it might be literally manifesting a feeling like, "Oh, in last year at this time, I was feeling great. I was feeling strong. I was feeling happy. Even if something as simple as that, where it's like, okay, what was I doing then? What could I do now to get back to that? And so maybe you are, trying to manifest this version of yourself. And, but you're doing the things that you can do that you have control over to get you there. And so I would say that's usually what I try to focus on. It's like the baby steps. What's the of course, going back to the example, winning $1,000,000, of course, that would make me really happy right now. But, is that actually like the best thing or what I should be manifesting or focusing on? And yeah, so sometimes going really back down to basics is the route I go.
Amazing. And I think too, just the like sentiment around caring about how you feel being so important for how you show up for other people. I think as like moms, especially early days, we either forget or the like society pushes that idea out of our heads because you're so focused on someone else, um, which there is necessity for, but at the same time, the premise of your mom enough and everything that Kara and I do is that um, your kids will grow up to take care of themselves the way they witness you take care of yourself. So I love that you're already looking at things like when things are challenging and reminding yourself like this is not forever, this tide will turn. And I also like to think this is working out for my highest and best good. Like this, it might, of all the crazy things I've made happen or have happened for me that everyone was like crazy, when I'm in the downturn of something and it feels crazy to me, I just remind myself that that's part of the path to, whatever. And I also like the concept of, well, like I divorce is the wrong word, but I kind of divorce myself from thinking about the outcome I'm trying to force happen and start to think about what else might be possible. Like, okay. And I remember like really clearly years ago, I had a devastating breakup story for another time, but I remember thinking like, okay, if this is not going to be the direction of my life, what else could be the direction of my life? And that's how I came to like craft the life that I have today, kind of. It was in that really like down moment. So I just want to say, like, that's a really powerful perspective. And I think it's a really helpful reminder that when things aren't going your way, it's not because manifestation isn't working. You still have the opportunity to say to yourself, okay, what can work out? Like what will be positive? What was I feeling when? Why did that feel good? I did that recently too. Like I had some vacation time in the summer and I remember just feeling kind of free and thinking to myself, okay, how do I feel this more often? Like this is
Mhm.
great. This is a great baseline. Like how do I make this feeling a focus? You know, woo woo as it may be, I do really love that manifestation is also really about tuning in with your own feelings and checking in with yourself, you know?
Absolutely, and just that whole feeling, I think it's kinda like what you're saying, different words, but just yeah, surrendering, and I feel like sometimes when we do have a vision or something that we are, we get a little bit dead set on it and maybe have our blinders on, we're only looking at that one thing, and when it's not happening, it can totally get frustrating, where if, yeah, life takes you in another direction or it's challenging in different ways and it feels like you're moving maybe further from what you thought, I think it is a really great opportunity to just sort of, you know, surrender, and it's I like that you said, it's like in those down moments, it's you don't realize it might feel like, "Oh, this manifesting isn't working," or, um, but everything really does happen for a reason, and don't wanna dive into that now, but for sure, I've, been there where it's like the darkest hour, and in the moment, it's like, "How has this happened to me? Like, how have I gotten here?" And then, now looking back, it's like, well, if that it was almost like, a kick in the butt, and it's like, if that didn't happen, there's no way I would be where I am today, like, have the life that I'm living today. I think things would have looked a lot differently, and I'm sure everyone has a scenario like that where it's like
Yeah.
that turning point and or maybe it hasn't happened yet, but I I I really do believe in, silver linings. Quite annoying sometimes. I think it's a bit of an annoying trait of mine actually, to silver line things, but, but it is true. I think, and maybe not silver lining, maybe let's say like a learning experience or even just an acknowledgement, not everything like we said, life ebbs and flows, not everything is gonna be great all the time, and so I think if you can find the lesson or the sign or whatever you're looking for in those, you know, those valleys, those moments, then, I think, yeah, it just sort of makes that manifestation stronger and you're open to seeing, not only the good things, but also seeing where those maybe darker moments sort of like direct you and lead you in life.
Tell you this one more concept that I have secretly in my mind, and then we can wrap up our conversation, but it just reminds me of it. Like, especially in dark times, I like to think of my 80-year-old self. She's the goal, right? She's gonna be amazing. But I like to think of my 80-year-old self, and if I had to tell her the story of my life, I wouldn't want it just to be like everything was the same,
Mhm.
the end, right? So
Yeah,
when things are challenging for me, I like to think like, okay, here comes another little adventure that I can overcome and tell my 80-year-old self about. Um, so I don't know why, but that just really helps me to not stay focused in the heavy, heavy and to like know that there is the 80-year-old, the 96-year-old, the 100-year-old version of myself that um I'm moving towards. It's not just this moment in time, you know?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The best is yet to come. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. If you are listening and you have not registered yet, you can come and join us and check out Meg's session in the More for Mom Summit by going to moreformomsummit.com and grab your free ticket now. Very exciting. If you are part of the workshop already and you have your bingo card, you will have heard the magic word. You can put that onto your bingo card in the session. We're really excited to have a prize for the
Cool.
winner. Very exciting. And Meg, thank you so much for joining. Two more questions. One, what can we expect to learn from you in your share? You don't have to have the exact title, but concept. And two, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so I'm really excited for in my share, I'm going to be diving in a little bit deeper into those digital vision boards. Might have a cheeky little freebie template. But yeah, I'm gonna dive in a little bit deeper in how you can start your own. And right now, I have all of my courses available at courses.studiotesoro.com. But I'll drop the link and everything as well. But
Amazing.
yeah, you can find me there.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming to hang.
Thank you so much, Shauna. This is awesome. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The holiday's magical. The food, the friends,
Yeah. Hey, Dave, before you start selling us on the joy of the season, me and the moms, we're taking a break.
Because let's be honest, if you're dreading instead of dreaming about the holidays, you're not alone.
And this year, it's time to do something more for mom before things get into the full swing.
The More for Mom Summit is your reset to swap stress for sanity and pressure for peace.
Join us free at moreformomsummit.com and make this a season you actually enjoy.